Today we're going to be filming about a podcast. Strike that, reverse it. Sit back and relax as we discuss how a kid full of dreams, but with withering hope, wins a ticket to a promising future in the shape of a chocolate factory and a Candyman. However, what Charlie Bucket didn't know is that this so-called Candyman has lost complete hope in humanity and believes we're in a constant descent towards hell. This is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. I'm very sorry, listeners, if that was awful. But
hopefully people didn't click out right away.
Yeah, if you're still here, you're a real one.
Yeah, do you know what thing about this movie, man, that not enough people talk about?
What?
It's weird.
It's weird.
Willy Wonka, a weird guy.
Willy Wonka's a weird guy. You can never tell if he's gonna stab you in the back, or if he's really a magician.
We're joking primarily because we love this movie, obviously, who doesn't? But also, we both, let's be honest and upfront here, we both really loved Wonka.
Oh, yeah.
Would you say you loved it?
I guess. I mean, I thought it was virtually flawless in what it intended to deliver. Did it really fully 100% connect with me to where I love it? Not really, but I really, really enjoyed it and respect it.
Are you saying it's like a flawless as a movie, or in terms of its premise?
In terms of its premise.
Okay, yeah. Like, it was trying to make a whimsical live-action Paddington thing, and it did.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. I was super cynical about it, and you came back after the holidays and you were like, saw Wonka, pretty good. And I was like, damn it, I have to go see this now. Huge fan of Timothée Chalamet, obviously, as like a movie star in general, like most of his stuff. And went to go see it, and it charmed my pants off. And the criticism this movie's mostly been getting is that Willy Wonka is weird, he's strange, he's eccentric. If this movie, especially, a lot of people in its criticism for Wonka were referencing this movie.
Yeah.
In terms of being like, look how they made Wonka really like dark in some points and places where you can't really tell, like the joke you were making.
Yeah. And
I think you and I talk about it a lot, but for me personally, I just kind of threw my hands up and I was like, listen, these are two different interpretations, but I still liked Wonka and I still like this movie. Yep. Both can be true.
Yeah.
I have kind of a weird take of how, like, Wonka complements this movie really well if you look at it in a certain way.
Okay.
But we can get to that. But
Yeah, we can get into that, I think, for people especially who are comfortable with spoilers for the new one.
That being said, I just wanted to do some groundwork there and kind of address the chocolate elephant in the room.
I don't know if that one worked. Are there chocolate elephants? Is that a thing you can buy?
Probably somewhere.
Or did you just take elephant to the room and put the word chocolate in front of it?
Kind of. That's kind of what I did.
Okay, yeah. I see what you're going for.
What's been your experience with this movie?
I mean, this movie is like in my DNA. I've grown up with it, seen it on TV an ungodly amount of times. It's on, it was always on ABC Family and crap like that, It's like to the point of I mildly remember where there would be commercial breaks when I saw it as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Like after the Violet Beauregard scene, when the Oompa Loompas roll her away and they take the dad away, and the dad's like, I have a blueberry for a daughter. It fades to black immediately to go right to the commercials. I just certain things just stick with me,
Wow, that's like, not to get all millennial, but like that is like something that like a generation ahead of us won't have that experience of like remembering those moments of watching something. But Willy Wonka, oddly enough, wasn't that for me. Like, I watched it as a kid, like every kid did, and I enjoyed it. I watched Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and when I was a kid, I enjoyed it. Charlie and Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton one. Now, obviously, I like this way more. I don't like the Charlie and Chocolate Factory one at all. I don't think it holds up when you're an adult.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the movie it was for a lot of people, including yourself, of just like, man, I just kind of know everything about it. Like, I think Ferris Bueller, which was our last podcast, if you go listen to that one, that movie was definitely that for me. And this is a movie I watched a lot as a kid, but never really watched it much as an adult. I haven't seen this movie in almost a decade.
Damn, that's crazy. I forgot. I remember you mentioned that in passing when we were getting ready to do this show.
Yeah.
But I just kind of processed it now that we're on camera. I'm like, damn, it's been a decade?
I'd always rewatch scenes on YouTube, obviously. Like,
sure.
I can't tell you the amount of times I've rewatched Pure Imagination, but
sure, yeah.
I think it was truly a joy watching this movie as a whole, because even something that I've seen so many times, like Pure Imagination, has a whole new meaning to it when you watch it outside of a YouTube clip, which is like, you're like, yeah, no shit. But at least for me, that was like a big revelation of kind of just being like, this song means something different than what I originally thought it meant.
Yeah, it hits differently, especially as you get older and your view on the world changes, and that's kind of what a lot of the message of this movie is. And it's funny that you say though that like you rewatch Pure Imagination, because you just for viewers and listeners, you've always been like, I'll watch a wholesome scene again and again on YouTube. Like, you like to watch clips. Yeah. I do too sometimes. You know what I mean? There are certain ones, like I'll rewatch clips from Lord of the Rings all the time. Or,
yeah. Lion King is a big one too.
Lion King, absolutely. The only thing about Lion King clips is because it's a kids movie, the comment section is almost always removed.
Yeah, it's like and sometimes it's nice to see what people feel about it.
I want to, yeah, exactly. I want to see the community of Lion King fans.
Of course, no, yeah. We should say, if people don't know, Lion King is probably your number one favorite
That's probably
movie.
my favorite movie of all time, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to mention, because it's just like, I feel like we all grew up with Lion King, and we all love it. We remember all the scenes and all the songs, and we know what the scenes that we cried at. But it's one of those movies we take for granted of always just being there. And I think you were the way you talk about Lion King made me be like, oh, this is a great work of art. Like,
yeah, it's a masterpiece, straight up.
Yeah. And I think you made me appreciate it way more than I already did. But yeah, watching it again, a lot of things I picked up on. The obvious stuff, just, yes, being the whole, like, the way Gene Wilder plays Willy Wonka is such an insane piece of, like, creativity and work, and shows, like, what an actor can really bring to a role, and bring more than probably what was on the paper.
Yeah, I mean, literally every line is, like, quotable by him.
Oh yeah,
it's like amazing. And I'm sure you wrote them down too, but I wrote down just a list of quotes I like.
I actually didn't, because there were so many that I was like, well, probably. I kind of expected you to write them down.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'll take care of it. But like,
he speaks in a lot of, okay, so that was a thing though. Mm-hmm. He speaks in these like Wonka-isms, right, where it's just like every time something happens, whether a kid gets sucked into a pipe, or like a parent is asking annoying questions, he always has a whippy comeback, or he's reciting poetry all the time.
Yeah, he'll say like kind of just things that come across as nonsense, but if you think about it, it might have like a meaning to it or something passive aggressive underneath.
This movie does such a brilliant job in building the mystery of who Willy Wonka is.
Yeah, even the opening credits that have like all the imagery of the chocolate being made.
Yeah,
while the music's playing.
Yeah,
like, to me at least, like, I remember right when the movie starts with this music playing and you see all these little chocolate kisses being made and the wafers running through. You're immediately, like, the tone is set. You feel like a little kid or something like that.
Immediately. Yeah, no, you're completely right. Again, you don't see much more of the factory. You just see the chocolate being made.
Yeah,
and then you go to the Candyman song, which I forgot that happens before you meet Charlie Bucket.
Mm-hmm. That's what leads to meeting him, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that, or I didn't remember that. When you talk about images that you'll always remember, I'll always remember the just insert shots of all the lollipops being grabbed.
Yeah, the way it rapidly cuts as all the lollipops disappear out of frame.
And that song gives you like this wonderment, this Spielbergian like question of like who this is, like this magical guy that fulfills all kids' dreams with chocolate and candy and stuff like that.
You wouldn't ask a bird why it flies, or whatever he says.
That actor is great. He just he has it like kind of down the tone.
Yeah, the scrumdiddlyumptious bar, like this long thin. You're like, I want to try that. I have no idea what it is.
Well, especially when you bite into it, you realize there's marshmallow in it, and you're like, oh my god, that just seems like the best thing ever. As a big chocolate guy, I was never like a big candy guy, but I was always a big chocolate guy.
I like how firm you put your hands up to say that too. Like, okay, this is my my candy take.
This is like my hot candy take. Yeah. What about you? Were you a big candy person?
I like both, but I am more of a candy guy than a chocolate guy. Wonka was like a real brand for a while.
Yeah, of course. I mean, didn't Nerds come from Wonka?
Nerds, Laffy Taffy. There was this one that's discontinued that called Bottle Caps. Did you ever have that candy?
Bottle caps, no.
Yeah, they were like, it came in like an M&M type pouch, basically, like kind of like a long, kind of thin, rectangular pouch.
Yeah.
And these little bottle cap shaped candies came out of it, and it was kind of like soda flavored. Point is, I used to get those on the line out the door of a Blockbuster. You know, they always have those candies in the Blockbuster lines.
And that's the thing, man. Kids don't know. Like, we used to go on a Friday night. My mom would only let me pick 2 movies.
Yeah.
And, you'd have to return in 3 days.
You have to watch it the night of, you know?
Please, be kind and rewind, And, like, we would get pizza.
Gradually get weirder and weirder.
I'm making fun of myself and literally everyone who talks about Blockbuster.
Yeah, I know, right?
As a champion of physical media, I get it, but like, it's just really funny. But yeah, it is. I know Wonka was like a thing, which is kind of crazy, right? It started from like a children's book to like, obviously like a classic kid's hit, but it's just crazy that it became like an actual candy brand that people loved and that like some people probably had without knowing Wonka.
Yeah.
But that being said, it leads into meeting Charlie Bucket, who's looking through the window, like maybe me one day, kind of. But that's kind of how you hear about Wonka first.
Yeah, through the mouth of other people, basically.
But like with this idea of like, this is a great man.
Yeah.
And slowly through those like first 40 minutes before you even meet Wonka, right? The view of who this man is gets skewed. Even when like Charlie looks through the closed gate of the Wonka factory and he sees like the Wonka sign light up, you see the guy with all those knives just being like, anyone who enters can't leave. And you're like, okay, who is this man?
Yeah, I know.
And like he shut down the factory and there's mysterious workers. How is he keeping these things operated? Like immediately it turns like takes a dark turn.
I know. I always love that trope, like the creepy old guy who warns you.
Yeah.
Like that. It's usually, he's like some disfigured or pirate hook hand or something being like, don't go in there. The legend of the ghost.
But I just think it's amazing that they go from like this idea of all these kids being excited about Wonka to then Charlie running away from the factory because he's terrified.
Yeah, totally.
And so you're immediately have this idea of like, okay, but really, who is this guy?
I remember Red Letter Media's review for it made a joke that the Candyman song, all of the candy was free. Like, he didn't actually charge any of the kids. He's just giving it all out. They made a joke saying, like, Charlie, you can just go in there.
It's like, honestly, like, apparently there's no barrier to entry.
Yeah, like, you can just go in, you'll get candy. He's like handing it all out.
He's like picking up Skittles and like kind of just
sprinkling them across the kids.
Everyone's grabbing lollipops. Yeah. It's true.
I think it's interesting that you don't really meet Willy Wonka until probably like a good 45 or 50 minutes into the movie. Literally, you have less than an hour left of the movie when he walks on screen for the first time.
Yeah, it's minute 43. Like, I paused it on the TV to look because I was like, oh my God, that's the thing, like, when you grow up, like, when you're watching this movie as an adult, you don't realize how much time you spend with Charlie and his family.
Well, Charlie and his family, and also, like, just kind of the world in general. There's so much, like, I think there's so many small vignettes that cut away to like the buildup of the Wonka golden ticket craze.
Well, right when it's announced, you get all this like satirical elements. You get the therapy session, which of the guy like being like, I keep having this dream of an archangel coming down and giving me directions to the Wonka bar, and immediately the therapist is like, and what did they tell you?
And then he's like, well, you told me it's a dream. Shut up and tell me where the ticket is. I always quote that line with my family, by the way. Like, shut up and tell me where the ticket is. It's just so funny to say.
My favorite one is the husband who's been kidnapped, and the detective is just like, for ransom, all they want is some Wonka bars. And the actress who plays the wife does such a good job.
Yeah.
Because in her face, you can see like,
she's really conflicted.
Like, she doesn't say much, but she's like super conflicted.
Just one crate, right? It was one box of the Wonka bars.
It's like, it's a crate of Wonka bars or your husband. Like, what do you...
How long would they give me to think about it?
But, like, it's kind of wild that they have all this stuff in a kid's movie.
Well, yeah, I think what's so cool is it sets up kind of a cynical, greedy world, and it only illuminates Charlie's character more.
Yeah.
Because he has such a pure heart. That's the whole thing, right? That Willy Wonka's looking for a child with a pure heart that will be loyal and have the innocence, right?
And Charlie couldn't be more pure.
Yeah, that's his whole thing. And so they do a lot of world building around Charlie, where it's like, yeah, Slugworth is trying to steal, he's whispering to all the little kids, trying to steal the Gobstopper. And again, with all these people, or the guy who tries to enter the computer information to tell the computer to set up an algorithm where the Wonka bars are.
And he said, it says that's cheating. I won't tell you.
Yes, I know. So, and then obviously all the news reports, etc. I could list all of it up. You get the point, right?
The news reporter is also such a great, like, it's like trying to be like Walter Cronkite, where it's just like, so the fourth one has been found. Like, he's so calm. Yeah. My favorite quote from him, he's like, we must remember, because after they find the last Wonka bar, you might be upset, you might be angry, but we must remember there are many more important things. Many more important things. Offhand, I can't think of what they are, but I'm sure there must be something.
I know. To wrap it up, though, on that part, is I think that is such an effective method, is to be brave enough to not introduce the title of the movie until like really far in, like halfway at least.
Setting up this world, and kind of something that I'd love to talk about with you further on when we get to Wonka in the factory, is that it sets up why Willy Wonka's so cynical in this movie. Like, why he's so, like, passive aggressive and hates, like, just what this world has become, really. It's an aspect that I think gets talked about maybe a little too much, but it is the reason why the movie gets dark where it does with Willy Wonka, is because this world is what it's become, right? We can still relate to that. Of just like capitalism takes over everything, greed takes over everything, yada yada yada. But like also the idea of Mike TV's character being obsessed with television and what's on the screen and constantly just focused on that. Being spoiled with rich parents and them giving you whatever you want.
Augustus Gloop being an absolute glutton.
Right. And like it sets up that world. It sets up all these people chasing Wonka bars and stuff like that, immediately selling them.
Oh yeah, even the teacher saying, "How many Wonka bars did you buy?" Like 100 or 200 or however many they ate. Remember when he asked the classroom and he get to Charlie and he says 2? He's like 200. He's like, "No, just 2." 2.
But the point I'm trying to make is that like this helps you understand why Willy Wonka is the way he is.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, and it's also a world that mocks Charlie for only having 2 Wonka bars, for not being greedy.
Yes,
that's really what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, that completely makes sense.
Yeah, and
they're all just like, how did you not buy 100?
Yeah, which, side note, why did the writer, like Roald Dahl, I guess, wrote the screenplay, but why did he go so hard writing that teacher character? Like, he has the most like personality I've ever seen in the short screen time he gets.
Something that I looked up, though, is that Roald Dahl is credited as a screenplay, but he only like did an outline.
Okay, no, sure.
So he submitted an outline, and he left the project due to creative differences. And so they brought in another writer who is uncredited, but it goes by the name of, I wrote it right here, David Seltzer.
Okay.
So apparently he kind of really did the screenplay. So I think we should talk about him as well. But it's like no small parts with that teacher.
Yeah, I know, literally as no small parts as it gets.
What does he say? He was just like, I've moved Friday test to Monday, so everything that we learned throughout the week will no longer be by the end of the week, but it will be on Monday. But it's Tuesday, so it makes no difference.
Yeah, it's like the most Monty Python dialogue I've heard. Or like when he asked, Charlie, like, do you know what these compounds do? It's like, no. Well, of course you don't know. If you knew, then I wouldn't be teaching you it. Whatever he says, like every line is just, and it's like when they say that the golden ticket thing happens, he's like, class dismissed. Yeah, they're only giving out 5. Class undismissed.
I put this quote back. That Red Letter Media video that you were talking about, their review for Willy Wonka, which is like kind of a big reason why I got back into this movie in a way. Like I just got like, because I always looked at this movie as like, oh, it's a kid's classic, the way the Disney movies are or whatever. And I remember like Mike being someone who is, Mike and Jay are both like, have a very cynical point of view. They don't like get too sentimental about stuff in a way that I respect too. They think about movies critically, right? But the way Mike, out of all people, talked about Willy Wonka as this thing of just like pure joy for him, but also like talked about how well made it was, made me kind of realize, I'm like, oh, I've been overlooking this movie my entire life.
Yeah, I know. It is actually heavily worth a watch as an adult for multiple reasons. Obviously the whimsical themes can bring the child right out of you, but also the cinematography is like excellent. Like there's so many shots that are well framed. Like right when Willy Wonka's first coming out, walking down the
we should
the
save
walkway.
That, by the way.
But I'm just talking about the cinematography and how good it is. Like it's so perfectly framed.
100%. Director of photography Albert Ibbotson, to just give him a shout out. Directed by Mel Stewart. Really well made as a musical as well. When Grandpa Joe and Charlie Bucket are dancing in their room after they get up, you know what I mean? It's like, I've got the golden ticket.
Of course,
you see it on a very simple wide.
Oh yeah, with a lot of choreography and a lot of like comedy beats and the timing of it.
The joke is always like, Grandpa Joe just got up immediately, right? That's been the joke, we all know it. But like, there's something, what I love, what really sells that to me is the movie's self-aware about how ridiculous it is that Grandpa Joe is just getting up now. Like, the amount he just falls and topples over. And
yeah, my guy hasn't gotten up in like 20 years. He wouldn't have feeling in his feet if that was real.
Right, but
his feet would be purple.
But I think it's this like perfect balance of like, we gotta make him dance, but also he looks insane.
Yeah. Grandpa Joe is probably one of the more iconic grandpas in cinema. You know what I mean?
What are some iconic grandpas?
Or some iconic
I just wanted to throw that out there.
Alan Arkin and Little Miss Sunshine.
He's a great one.
Yeah.
Unless you start naming really good ones, he's like probably my favorite.
Sure. Well, okay, this isn't like a literal grandpa. There's some characters in movies and TV that aren't literal grandpas, but they serve the grandpa role.
Are you saying like they give off the vibe?
Yeah, Gandalf the Grey.
Sure.
Absolutely. Hagrid. You know?
Ooh, Hagrid a grandpa. You
know, well, I guess Dumbledore you can argue is more grandpa than Hagrid is, but Hagrid has kind of.
I always looked at Hagrid as like a fun uncle.
I can see that too, yeah.
But I could see Hagrid being grandpa too. You know, it's funny though. I never looked at him as like one of the greats.
Yeah.
I can totally understand it though, but it's just like this movie wasn't as special to me as it was for a lot of kids. When it comes to like one of the kooky grandpas, he definitely is one.
Oh yeah, I know, dude. Well, the minute he starts singing it like kind of just warms my heart a little bit.
Oh, the whole "I've got the golden ticket."
Yeah, as soon as he opens his mouth, he goes, "I've got a golden ticket." I'm like, oh.
Well, then the physical gag of him getting up after years and years and just like immediately becoming stiff and falling back down. I do love how like they play into the physical comedy of like this guy hasn't walked in years.
Yeah, I mean something that you say a lot, and I can let you take it away if you want. But you believe in musicals being captured on the wide.
I've always said it.
Yeah,
it's on billboards. When you arrive in LAX, you'll see my face on a big fat billboard. Shoot musical in wides. No, but it's true. I think the Wonka movie that just came out does that really well too. It's a simple thing that I think some modern musicals will get wrong every now and then. I'm just like, I want to see their feet. I want to see like their whole bodies. I want to see like the magic of a musical isn't a wide. The magic of a musical is seeing Gene Kelly doing Sing in the Rain, or even recently in RRR when those two best friends are dancing. It's on these great wide shots. You're seeing them do it.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And even though there's nothing as like fantastical about this dance sequence, it's still like the magic of seeing little Charlie and Grandpa Joe kind of being like, I've got the golden ticket. Yeah. And it's so like it warms your heart. And it also like highlights these like this great relationship of friendship that they have for each other, which I really was like touched by this time around. Like how Charlie gets money for Grandpa to buy some tobacco. Grandpa buys the Wonka bar. They open it together. That scene is so moving when they open it together.
Grandpa Joe wants Charlie to have hope so bad.
Yeah.
And so he'll tell him anything he wants to hear at that point, when as soon as they said, do you think I can get a golden ticket? And Grandpa Joe's like just one, I'm counting on you to get all five,
Well, yeah, it's like this movie's very much about like the importance of having dreams, but also what happens when you lose them. When we get to the Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka stuff, like what happens when you've lost faith in everything? What's the only thing that can help you gain it back? The dreams and hope of a young child. I mean, that's how I read this movie.
Sure.
And it's an optimistic view on it, but I feel like the darkness of this movie complements the lightness really well. And you couldn't have one with the other. I cringed really hard as I was saying it, so it pisses me off that you caught it immediately.
I sniffed it out. I was like, "Oh, you're saying something."
How you immediately looked at me with like this fucking grin, like, "Dude, that's sick. That's really good shit."
It's gonna be the whole show. It's just me goofing on your takes. That's so good.
So you know what's crazy about this movie? That it's dark.
Yeah. But no, you're right though. I think there is obviously like it expresses the importance of naive optimism. Obviously the whole lyrics of Pure Imagination. I mean, we can get into it deeper later, but they very much play with that, right?
It's magical. Again, I'm trying to save the Pure Imagination thing because I know that's going to be a whole segment.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on the same page.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the kids? We haven't really like touched on them. We're probably going to talk about them as we go on, but I feel like the kids we have, let me just name them off real quick. We have Veruca Salt as the bratty daughter. Violet Beauregard as the gum-obsessed girl, which I wrote. Mike, TV is his name. And then when I watched it as a kid, I was just like, oh, that's probably his nickname because he watches so much TV. And then you're just like, oh, Mr. and Mrs. TV.
Yeah, no, that's literally his family name.
It's a very Roald Dahl move.
Yeah.
As the TV cowboy kid, Augustus Gloop, in parentheses, in a very unkind way, I wrote fat kid.
That's his reputation.
But, I mean, has a movie ever come up with a better fat name? Augustus Gloop? I mean, it's from the book, I know, but and then
Still.
A villain name that is great is Slugworth, which he's not one of the kids, but he's very involved with the kids. As the kids receive their candy bars, Slugworth is whispering in their ear, and you don't hear it.
Yeah, and they play this same like, dun, 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 dun.
And it's a great build up to finally when he catches up to Charlie.
Yeah,
but a great assortment of kids. The casting for all the kids was just fantastic. I felt like they each have, like, not a sin, but they have like flaws in their character that are so deep, and later on their flaws are like come to life in a very tragic way for all of them in that factory.
Like I say, tragic. I remember as a kid, I remember thinking like when they have to explain like what they have to do to put them back together or whatever happens, I'm always like, holy shit. So it's like, oh yeah, they're gonna go in the furnace. Oh, they have to squeeze the juice out of her before she explodes. I'm like, what the hell?
I know how, like, he's like, well, of course he's gonna go to the furnace.
Yeah.
And the dad's like, the furnace, and like, so Gene Wilder's also laughing.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, it only turns on every other day, so they have a good chance.
The most annoying kid to me is obviously Veruca Salt.
Veruca Salt is, well,
grating to the ears.
Awful, right? But every kid and pretty much the whole movie is like perfectly cast, though. Like, I cannot imagine anyone else playing those roles. They're so perfectly played.
Oh, it's amazing. You know what I mean? And they're very, like, broad characters.
Yeah.
They kind of take over. Like, when they get to the factory, a criticism I had in mind, but then I kind of, like, scratched off when I was watching the movie, is that Charlie's character is very much sidelined. But I think that is intentional, because it's supposed to show that Charlie's not a type of guy that's going to be asking all these questions and is going to be like constantly like, I want this, right? Those are the other kids. Charlie is a type of person that he's one of those kids that be the quiet one looking in wonderment.
He's appreciating it. He's just happy to be there. And so he doesn't want to disrupt anything. He didn't have anything growing up, so he's just happy to be there and will just take it all in and absorb it and keep his mouth shut.
I know. And so in that way, it works really well. The kids have like an odd chemistry with one another too.
Yeah, the way they always kind of bicker at each other once in a while.
Yeah, and there's no like BS friendship that forms between any of the kids because all these kids are at it for themselves.
Yeah.
Which I think was kind of impressive because in a kids movie, usually you have the kids band together all the time. But this is like the one kids movie where all the kids kind of are distant and hate each other.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of true. I know. I remember they tried doing that in the Tim Burton movie. You know, do you remember that at all? There was like more dialogue between them.
Oh, totally.
Veruca and Violet were like, "Do you want to be best friends?" And they like link arms walking.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the Tim Burton movie. Do you have a relationship with that movie at all?
No.
Papa.
You know what's funny? As a kid, I watched that movie more times than I watched this one. Because I was a kid and I was like, well, this movie's more modern. Look, it has all these cool effects and like...
yeah, of course. Yeah, you were a kid.
And so I did watch that more. Always thought it was very weird. I never was like, oh, this is like a normal movie, because it's not at all. Johnny Depp is insane in that movie, not in a good way, in my opinion. It is trying to be so different.
Yeah.
And I feel like it doesn't tackle what this movie tackles really well, which is like a mixture of sentimentality versus quirkiness.
Oh, yeah, the eccentricity, but the creepiness behind it.
But also giving you, like, having a very, like, hopeful point of view on things.
Have you... I can't remember if I sent this to you or if you sent this to me, or maybe neither of us sent this to each other, but I saw a YouTube short of Elijah Wood talking about one movie he could erase from existence, and he literally said Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, man.
And he explained it for the very reason, like you said, where he was saying, like, Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, yes, he was creepy, and at times you couldn't feel like you could trust him, but he always had this magicalness underneath him where you knew he would take you through it well.
Well, it's those eyes, man.
Yeah, it's those beautiful blue eyes of Gene Wilder.
It's they like literally glisten. And I was like looking at them and it's just like, no matter how big of a maniac he is, right? he still has those eyes that feel warm. Yeah. And there's also a level of mischief that's going on. So I feel like because of that, and also how the character is written, you want to trust him.
Yeah.
But you also want to keep some distance. And then that makes a character so fascinating. I think, should we get to it now? Should we get to, like, Willy Wonka and meeting him?
Just get to the character of Willy Wonka?
Because I feel like we're tiptoeing around it.
Sure, yeah.
43 minutes in, which I said this earlier, but it's kind of surprising as an adult how long it takes to get to it. In a good way. I think it sets up the world really well, like we mentioned. It's this very, like, simple shot of, like, him just walking out with a cane. And there's this famous Gene Wilder story that he tells in many interviews about this character. He wanted to have that decision of him walking out limping and then doing the flip and then doing a bow. That was Gene Wilder's choice. And apparently there was some pushback of just like, Willy Wonka's entrance is going to be, this is so weird and everything. He's like, no, if we do this, then immediately it sets up a precedent of where you can't trust this guy.
Yeah, it's genius.
And what a move, right? It's such a great physical gag, too, of when he's walking with the cane and suddenly the cane stops mid-ground and he keeps walking and he's like trying to reach for it and then he does a flip.
Yeah.
That's like movie magic. It's just a simple effect, right?
Yeah.
This movie has a bunch of these simple visual effects, too, that we'll talk about.
Storytelling devices kind of thing.
But, yeah, storytelling devices, very simple shots that do something magical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we get into the factory, how it's a very narrow hallway, but then when he opens the door, it's suddenly this huge, gigantic door. That's the kind of stuff you watch movies for.
Oh yeah, as soon as we get to the factory, literally every frame is extremely creative. It's like crazy how they pulled it off.
There's no like huge camera moves though. I will say there's no like fancy stylistic camera moves or fancy lighting. On paper, it seems like a very simple looking movie, but like you said, it's doing something with every frame. Anyways, he enters, and what I like about it is that there's no showmanship. Well, there's obviously showmanship, but in his voice, there's no showmanship.
Yeah.
Like, Gene Wilder's immediately like, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, he's so calm. He doesn't yell or try to make get attention.
And like I said earlier, because of his eyes and because of his smile, there's this level of trust you have for him, and there's a level of distance you want to establish, where you're just like, I don't know this guy, but I want to like this guy.
Yeah. And, like, do you remember what the very first, like, little, like, surprise they get hit with?
Is it the big contract?
Before that, it was the
hands!
The little coat hangers.
Oh my God!
Like, gloved golden hands that grabbed them.
He grabbed his hat, Grandpa Joe's hat. Oh my God! I forgot about that. That's so good.
And he's like, remain calm. There's lots of little surprises, but nothing dangerous.
We have so much time and very little to see. Strike that, reverse it.
Yeah.
You know, immediately establishes this little whimsical world that we're in. Yeah. But whimsical and also creepy, and like you just don't know where you're getting into. It's so great. It reminds me of like when you watch the first Harry Potter or even Chamber of Secrets. Think about Chamber of Secrets for a second. When you go into Ron's house for the first time, I remember there's this very simple shot, like a scrub washing a plate by itself.
Oh, the sponge on the dishes that are moving automatically.
And it's so small and it's on a wide that you're immediately like, oh, it's like magical. You don't need to show a simple, like a crazy thing happening. Just that is enough to be like, where are we?
Yeah, and I think what enhances it so much too in Willy Wonka is how like resistant they are and how panicky they get. Like, you know, right when the contract, obviously the gloves or the hands or whatever, they freak out over. Then when they sign the contract, the dads try to fight with him about signing it. And then as soon as they go into that really cramped room, all of them are like, I hate that. Like, they're all freaking out because they're in a tiny ass room for no reason.
It makes complete sense. They're very valid to freak out.
Yeah.
But then doesn't he walk through them? He's like, please let me get by. He turns around, goes back to the same door where they came from, and they're in a new place.
I know, but that's the thing is like, that's kind of the pattern. As soon as they get to the factory, is like he freaks them all the hell out and then undoes it with something really nice.
And it's the same thing that happens with right before they get into the chocolate room. Of like, why are we in this narrow ass hallway, this small door? What's going on?
Oh yeah, when he walks at the end, how they're like, look, the room's getting smaller. No, he's getting bigger. You just see he's like all cramped at the end of the hall.
Yeah,
it's the trippiest imagery, and it still looks great.
And this, I gotta say, we're gonna get to some crazy stuff, right? This movie, to remind people, came out in 1971, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's a set in a world that's already feels so like magical. But this movie doesn't age at all to me. Like, it came out in 1971. It still feels like it could have come out last week.
It makes me think of like the set design and all that. It makes me think of like Wizard of Oz or Star Wars or something like
Wizard
that.
of Oz, especially when they enter the room and
Yeah.
it's full color. That's a very Wizard of Oz.
Like the production and the set still looks really good. And I think, yeah, like you said, it probably has something to do with how magical it is. And it doesn't make a point to really show it off. You know, like, I think that's one problem I have.
It does.
Well, it shows up when I say it in the sense of, like, it doesn't do these, like you said, these crazy close-ups and really try to make it over the top. It trusts the set and the stuff that you see to be the magical part. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know if I'm rambling.
No,
if that makes sense.
I get it, because like I think what I got from it is like when you enter the room, there's this like wide shot that kind of like is showing you everything, but there's no like, I don't know, there's no sweeping shot with swelling music. It's very like patient. Like,
Yeah.
look at this, take this in.
Yeah, it's very peaceful.
Yeah, and that's a move that kind of is not really would be done in a movie today, because it's very patient, and it's just trusting kids to just like take this in.
Yeah, I know. So do you want to talk about the chocolate room scene?
Yeah, so pure imagination is amazing.
The chocolate room was one of the coolest fucking things I've ever seen as a kid. The idea of when he says like you could eat almost everything, I was like, what? That sounds crazy.
No, it's like, it's so good. It's so good. Like seeing them like lick the whipped cream off the mushrooms,
Yeah.
or just like him doing that small move of hitting his cane against the tree
and all the
candy
little
falling
Skittle
out.
thingies come out.
Just those gummy bear trees.
Yeah, which I wonder, was that made of balloon or something like that?
Well, she takes a bite into it, right?
You don't see the bite rip off. She just kind of bites and stretches it.
That's right. It had to be some sort of like inflammable, like balloon plastic thing.
Inflammable.
Inflatable. No, oh, man.
Oh!
Let's end the pod. Let's
Gross, dude. Did you misspeak? That's what I should do every time, like, one of us has, like, a little vocal flub.
You should vomit.
Just be like, oh, God!
Okay, I think we're skipping around it, but let's talk about the song.
Yeah.
My favorite move of all time will always be the dun 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 dun, and then like him walking up the stairs a little bit and then back the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Who came up with that? I don't know, but it's that thing that I keep talking about. It's like these very simple moves that make things feel so like magical.
Yeah, and him whipping the cane in front of them to not let them walk too far up. Like, hey, be patient, you know?
Not yet, not yet. And then he does that little bow to let them go.
Oh, and just the song too, like just the build up with that little like dun 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 dun. You know, that little peaceful chime. It's such a cool way to build up the song. Pure imagination, hearing it always makes me feel like a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's like, again,
it's like Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yeah, there's some songs that just, you know, evoke that to you. And I think just the way the lyrics are just so simple, like you've said, but they do just carry you through. They feel like, oh, it's okay to let go of all the bullshit. You know what I mean? It's okay to just want things and just go for it. It's okay. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about the logistics of it. If you want a thing, you can just fucking do it. You don't want to change the world, there's nothing to it. You know? That's what it says. You know? It literally is just like...
Well, and the way he sings, the way Gene Wilder is singing it, and the way like it's being performed too, it feels like you're kind of floating through the song a little bit.
Yeah, and like just the lyrics, like if you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. It's like you're there already, man. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like that's really what the song's trying to say to you. You know?
Again, I'm gonna keep mentioning this because I really believe that the magic of this movie is in the tiny details. And just the way when the song ends, he chews on the teacup.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
He takes a bite out of the little cup.
Nothing's better. Like
you know that was just wax, right? Have you heard that?
I've heard the story of he hated like chewing on that. Yeah, no, I've heard that story. And something that I didn't pick up on when I was a kid is that when you look at the way he's singing the song, he's not like smiling and he's not like whimsical. He's very calm, looking at the kids enjoy life, and you cut to these close-ups of these kids really like gorging themselves with candy, right? And there seems to be this feeling of like longing that I got when I was watching this scene,
like a sad undertone.
So yeah, primarily because like this man doesn't seem like the Timothée Chalamet Wonka that we saw, but the way I justified that Wonka in my head was that Wonka was a guy that just moved to the city and was ready to like start working, right? He was hopeful and he had everything and he found some roadblocks, but eventually he was like, I want to make chocolate and give it to the people, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we're all like when we're younger. We have like aspirations, we have ambition, and nothing will get in our way. But what happens when you get older? You get more cynical. The world kind of beats you down. When you do what you love for a living and actually are successful at it, there's another level to it. I did the thing I really wanted to do. I'm still not feeling the things I really want to feel. And also, this world is fucked up. Nothing seems better, but I'm doing what I love, so I shouldn't hate this. But, like, why did I even start this in the place? Oh, it was because I had pure imagination.
Yeah.
And when I watched this pure imagination, when I watched, like, Willy Wonka last night, that's kind of how I read it, and that's what moved me.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, like, not in a bad way. I didn't think about that at all. I just didn't notice that, but that totally makes sense. I think, like, Willy Wonka's battle in both the new Timothée Chalamet movie and in the classic Gene Wilder movie, he is battling cynicism in some form or another. You know what I mean? And I won't spoil anything for the new Wonka movie, just in case people haven't seen it yet. But his thing is, like, he's going up against the other chocolate cartels who are more straightforward with their business. And Willy Wonka's chocolate is too magical. Like, he's a threat because his is too fun,
In the Timothée Chalamet one.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
Right.
In this one, though, yeah, like you said, he's seeking out a child that has the purity of what he's been trying to do. Of what he's achieved.
And but the way I think I look at it is that he's seeking out the purity that he might have lost along the way.
Yeah.
Because he became a giant in the world, right? In this world, he is like Jeff Bezos. Like, it's like he's like the biggest person in the game. He has a chocolate monopoly.
Jeff Bezos. Sorry, so many images just came into my head.
I know what you're thinking. The bald Jeff Bezos leading people into the Amazon factory.
With a little top hat.
A bunch of people who are not being paid enough working.
All wearing green wigs. And orange skin.
Come with me and you'll see. I'm doing a very below par Jeff Bezos impression, but you should, if you're not watching the YouTube channel, you should.
It's going to add a lot if we see your facial expressions. That's going to really
I was basically doing like Steve Carell's Jeff Bezos impression. Have you seen that Steve Carell sketch?
Yeah, that's classic.
Anyways, but what I'm saying is that he became a giant in this space.
He's a titan, yeah.
And he's kind of realized that he's lost that purity because he just doesn't feel it anymore.
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, like, the way I read it now is like Charlie helped him become Timothée Chalamet again. I know the people who hate the Wonka movie will hate me for saying this, but I don't know. That's kind of like...
That's the way you connect them together kind of thing.
But then also, even if that Wonka movie didn't exist, that's kind of how still I look at it.
You know what's kind of funny? I didn't even think about this until just now. That we didn't even address Cheer Up Charlie. We completely bypassed that song.
It's the worst song. It could so easily be cut out. Like, it's so unnecessary. I don't need to know that Charlie's really like morose or whatever. Like, it's
just kind of a brooding song. It's just him walking sadly.
And the mom just sitting there on the stairs.
Cheer up, Charlie.
And like Charlie can't. What is the blocking of that? I don't know. Yeah. It's such a weird song.
This is one part that everyone kind of accepts. It's like, we can bypass that song.
You know what's funny? While we were recording, though, I thought about the song. I'm like, I'm not bringing it up.
Oh, yeah, you intentionally. I totally forgot about it. And I've seen this movie way more than you, and I totally forgot about Cheer Up Charlie.
Augustus Gloop falling inside the chocolate waterfall.
Oh,
That's the first child tragedy.
I know. That leads to his line where he's like, there's so much suspense. I hope it'll last. And it's also like the one time you see Wonka like legitimately stressed and like pissed.
Well, because he's like, you're contaminating my chocolate.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, it's like someone he contaminated a whole ass batch of chocolate.
Well, that's the thing. It's just like, I know this looks cool, but this is how we make chocolate. That's the funniest thing to me. Of just like, not many people make chocolate like through a waterfall or whatever. What was the line? If you want it just right.
Yeah. Well, logistically though, you think if you tell everyone, hey, everything in this whole room's edible, like just fucking have at it.
Just not that.
But there's a chocolate river in the middle of it. Do not touch it. It would have been useful to tell them that. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
I know. You should be like a writer for CinemaSins, man.
Oh, God. Don't
Ding!
do that. And when I say, oh, God, that's not me knocking CinemaSins. It's more like I'm too cynical,
I'll knock CinemaSins.
Yeah, I respect them. I'm not in the market of,
Fair enough.
criticizing them.
We don't have to dog them for no reason.
Yeah.
It's always fun to punch up than punch down.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're so much bigger than us.
Yeah, who cares? Justice for CinemaSins.
It's like CinemaSins for Nice Dude, and they show one of our videos, and they're like, "Ding, we really like them. Why would they do this?"
Anyway, though.
Anyways, Augustus Gloop gets stuck in the pipe, and they have to get him out. And who comes out? The Oompa Loompas.
I know. Well, I know. Even like when Willy Wonka's watching him stuck in the pipe, he's just snacking while watching.
Oh yeah, not scared at all.
Everyone's just curious what's gonna happen.
So one thing I have to say is that the Oompa Loompa song is obviously like an earworm.
Yeah.
Right? Probably the catchiest song in the movie. It's not the best, but the catchiest song.
Probably the most iconic, like, repeatable song that anyone can sing, for sure.
The amount of times to you I'll say in passing, I don't like the look of it.
Yeah, I know. We do say that to each other. I don't like the look of it. I will say there's something so interesting about, like, the structure of that song, too, because the other ones are so, like you said, whimsical and floaty. And then this one's very tightly structured, like, oompa, loompa. Like, there's this kind of uniformity to it that feels like the group of Oompa Loompas are all in sync for this song.
Well, they're an assembly line of factory workers. Yeah, so it makes sense.
And something about it, just the song, like, there's no other way you can do a song about the Oompa Loompas other than having it be that. It has almost like this kind of Eastern European sound to it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's
like they're marching in uniform, like, Oompa Loompa.
Well, and also there's this, like, they put them in squares. Like, the editing of the sequence is really weird when they get into those squares and then the text pops up. It feels weird, like MTV-ish style editing. Like, I don't know what's going on there, but it really adds a whole different tone.
I know. I always liked it, not to totally skip around, but the last one they sing from Mike TV, how the timing changes. Do you remember that?
Oh.
Like, Oompa, doopa dee doo.
Yeah.
like they change it up a little for the last one.
I think it's, if only because of the outfits, that might be my favorite version.
Sure. Yeah.
It
has the most choreography too. He plays like a little flute to summon them.
My favorite thing.
That they come out. Oh yeah. Well, I think my favorite exchange with that too is with Mike TV when they had to bring him out to the stretcher, to the taffy stretcher.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but he says it. And he's like, be extremely careful. Then the Oompa Loompa whispers in his ear. And he's like, no, you won't be held responsible. Go ahead. Like, as if, like, don't worry, if it goes wrong, I will not blame you.
No, come on. Like, it's fine. We'll hide this really well.
And meanwhile, Mike TV's mom is, like, all passing out.
Yeah, I know. Something about Gene Wilder I want to bring up. Like I said, I feel like he plays sentimental and insane at the same time really well.
Yes.
And we're about to talk about the boat scene. One of the most infamous scenes, I think.
Of course, yeah. It's terrifying to children.
Right, of course.
Chicken getting decapitated in that.
Fucking wild. But before, like, this channel, before doing reactions to the channel, the only thing I've really seen Gene Wilder in was Willy Wonka.
I mean, same, actually, yeah.
When it comes to doing videos for this channel, we've seen Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. And when you watch Young Frankenstein, you're like, you can so understand, like, how this guy's able to play, like, this character so well. Young Frankenstein, he's doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, I mean, like,
where he plays this guy who feels like he's burned into with his family's past, but he's also his family, and he is a crazy scientist.
He's clearly unhinged, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Gene Wilder has kind of, like, the same effect that we always talk about with, like, Robin Williams or something like that, where there's this charm to them that you can't really describe that gives you comfort. And then there's a whole other side of them that's funny as shit.
Yes.
Completely different than Robin Williams, obviously.
But in that Robin Williams way, their comedy is always a bit unhinged.
Yeah, exactly.
He's so good at being angry.
Yeah.
Like Gene Wilder.
Oh yeah, his face will turn red, he'll yell.
And when the light switch really goes off, but in those last, like, 10 minutes, and he gets really angry, it's truly terrifying. So the boat scene, pretty infamous, probably scared you as a kid too. I don't know what to say about it besides, like, it is, like, the craziest thing even today to watch.
Yeah.
Like, just those shots of a chicken getting its head cut off and those animals and stuff like that, you're like, how did they get away with this?
I know, dude. I know. I always love the small detail that Grandpa Joe just enjoys it, though.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, who cares? It's fun. He's just having a great time.
That's the real grandpa move that you're saying. Like, how he's everyone's grandpa. It's like, we always had a kooky family member who's into just shit like that.
Who's just happy to be there. But yeah, no, I mean, it's especially combined with him gradually yelling and the way he starts, like, there's no way of knowing what direction we are going, whatever he says.
I have it. He's doing the rowing song.
Yeah.
Not a speck of light is showing, so the danger must be growing. Are the fires of hell a-glowing? Is the grisly reaper mowing?
Yeah, it's insane. And he's, like, gradually screaming it with, like, green and red lights all over him.
What does it mean? What do you think?
I have no fucking idea, and I never thought of it, and I don't care to know.
Unfortunately, we are doing a podcast.
No,
so
but I'm just saying, that's my take. Is I don't have a take and I don't care and I accept that.
Okay. So as people can probably tell listening to this, I thought a little too hard about this movie.
No, it's great. Yeah.
But again, going back to the whole like he's lost all hope for humanity, like I said in my synopsis.
Yeah.
I wrote down something like, we're descending or ascending to hell or heaven, or we might be going nowhere nobody knows. That's kind of like how I look at this song. I'm like, he has no idea where we are in life. He has no idea what this world has become.
Yeah.
But who the fuck cares?
Well, and that's what he sings to all of... Exactly. He kind of does it to both comfort and antagonize them at the same time. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know if this is cool. We don't know where we're going because there's a bunch of scary shit flying everywhere.
Yeah.
It's almost like that sequence is like a metaphor for life.
100%.
And I think that's what makes people connect to it because it has such a chaotic energy. But as soon as he said, I want it to stop, he's like, okay, cool, we're here.
Oh, okay, yeah. He's like, okay, I can switch this on and off whenever you like.
Yeah.
It made me think a lot about Wizard of Oz again because the compliment this movie gets a lot, Willy Wonka, is that it has scenes in it that fuck a kid up. But I've heard a lot, and this is coming from the people who had criticism of the new Wonka movie, saying that this movie's a great example of like, you need those movies as kids that like disturb you a little bit. Where you're like, I watched it, but I couldn't see that scene. But those are the scenes as you grow up stay with you, and maybe you get a new meaning from them as you grow up. Like, I'm watching this scene now, and I'm obviously reading it as like this existential crisis that I'm having. But like, that's important, right? I feel like it's just as important as to give a kid candy. It's important to take that candy away from them and see how they react, in a way.
Sure.
It's like the darkness is complemented with the lightness.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But it made me think of Wizard of Oz and how it does the same thing with those flying monkeys.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, or for me with Wizard of Oz, the part that scared me as a kid was two scenes. In the tornado, when the house is flying,
Oh my god, when the witch shows up?
and she shows up in the window and you hear the music and she's laughing at her. That, and then the witch in the crystal ball. When it switches to
my
abruptly
God.
mocking Dorothy because
Yeah.
she's gonna die because the hourglass is like timing her life away.
Yeah, and
I need to watch that movie again, man. That movie's
I mean,
good.
it's yeah,
It's not really much of a statement, but goddamn, that's a
it's
good
a
movie.
perfect movie. Yeah.
I always liked the chaos once they go into the invention room that has like the Oompa Loompas kind of studying everything, making sure the little pipes were... Remember how like, those little pipes were puffing out smoke?
Oh yeah.
They're like little train...
Wait, this is the same room that has the gobstoppers, right?
Yeah, and it has the gobstopper and like the gum too.
Yes.
And
the
so,
gum.
but even before that, remember how like Willy Wonka's kind of walking through testing it out. He puts shoes in the big pot. He's like, it needs a kick.
Yeah, oh god.
And then when he touches it, he screams like, "What's wrong, Mr. Wonka? Is it too hot? No, too cold." He puts a jacket inside of it. Like, you just don't know what to think every point in turn.
It highlights a thing that we've been saying is that like every frame and every moment right when you enter the factory is creative and so unexpected. Like you're always like the movie's always ahead of you.
Yeah.
You're never ahead of the movie.
That's very true because I don't even think of that because I'm always ahead because I know everything that happens.
You've seen the movie so many times, and yeah.
Yeah, but a newcomer who's never seen it, I've never watched any YouTube first time watching reactions to this movie. I would love to now.
Oh, they're probably great.
It's so kooky, but yeah, it's very true. But the point is, though, I always liked how chaotic and kind of dirty the room is.
Well, okay, great point. So the set design for all the like rooms and like every part of the factory is brilliant for no shit, right? But it's like romantic when it needs to be, it's grimy when it needs to be, it's sterile as hell when we go to the TV room when it needs to be, right? It never has this like glossy look on the entire movie. It's perfect for every moment.
Yeah, you don't know what to expect in every room, essentially. You really don't, even down to
up
like
until the ending.
Yeah. And so, yeah, but then eventually, naturally, we can go over Violet Beauregard's demise of sorts.
Well, yeah, so this is a good point to bring out. Like, all these kids going through what they go through, whether it's being sucked through a pipe near the Chocolate River, or
Blown up like a blueberry.
Like Violet Beauregard. It's very related to, like, what their thing is, what their shtick
With their flaw.
their flaw is, which is obvious, right? But it's one of those things, like, when I was a kid, I didn't pick up on it, and I haven't seen this movie in a while that I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah, I know. Violet always had a special place in my heart as a kid just because she was so like hyper competitive and her character was always just funny, like saying "can it, mother" or whatever whenever she talks.
Or she's always talking shit to her friend from home.
Yeah, I forget her name, but yeah, she's like, "Hi, sweetie, how are you?" Because she beat her record in the gum
still
chewing.
stretching.
Yeah.
There's this shot in that same room where Violet Beauregard's about to like pick up the gum, but as the machine is producing the gum.
Yeah.
Right? There's this quick shot. I don't know if you caught it. It's an insert of like Willy Wonka looking.
Yeah, where he's like all framed all tight.
You saw it,
looking
right?
like an absolute maniac.
Like he's gonna kill someone. Like, okay, I'm so glad you caught it.
No, I caught that.
It was like I had to pause it. I'm like, that looks crazy. She blows up into this like big thing, into this ball, which I was looking at this time. I'm like, do you think they probably built this like contraption that they put the little girl in because so just her head sticks
Some
out.
Inflatable, yeah.
And they
device.
just put her in that so her little head sticks out. But that girl had to be like rolling around like that.
Yeah.
I was like, that must have been a day of shooting.
I know, right? It's got to be stressful.
But the Oompa Loompas are like rolling her around.
And they're just singing it. Like, I think what's so funny about the Oompa Loompa song is like they're kind of just doing another day on the job. Like they're also blank faced. Mm-hmm. They're not doing these emotional, crazy performances. They're just very like, all right, another little shit. But the gradual turn is just so nostalgic to me. I don't want to just list off everything that happens, but like, it always just, I remember being a kid and seeing like her face gradually turn purple while she's like describing the blueberry pie.
You can see that like along with her face is blue, the background is kind of blue. So that was probably like a lighting thing.
Yeah.
Because now they would be able to mask it more properly and it would just be her face.
That's how they did it pretty much in the Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, and so like there is something kind of like nice to see that. Like it was such a simple lighting trick, but it's still just as effective.
Yeah.
My favorite turn is the TV room, though.
Yeah, the TV room is pretty fucking cool.
As a kid, that was like my favorite thing in the world. I thought that was the coolest shit in the world. You can just go inside a TV. And talking about like simple effects too, right? Of just like, it's a match cut, obviously, a lighting trick. He disappears. He's in the little kid, Mike TV's in the TV, but then you could tell they built like a set.
Oh, yeah, whole ass set to scale it.
And then when it cuts back to mom, it's like he's looking at a big screen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god, this still is effective, though.
Yeah.
It's still just as effective, but it's such a simple trick.
I know, and even right when he's like broken up into the millions of tiny pieces floating with that little sound effect, a little...
Yeah. But again, this movie came out in 1971, and how does it look that great?
Yeah, it just feels great. It's the sound design, too, that enhances it. It's very unique. Almost makes you think of like Star Wars or something when they're in that room.
Oh, yeah.
Those little technology sounds.
I love the suits that they're wearing,
those
too.
jumpsuits that cover their heads, almost like hazmat suits or something.
But I think we skipped the whole scene where...
We did skip Veruca Salt's demise, yes. But
you know what's funny? I was going to talk about how Grandpa Joe and Charlie Bucket were floating in that room with the soda bubbles.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I remember watching it, and I kind of forgot the reason Wonka got mad at them at the end. But when I was watching it, I'm like, this scene seems extremely unnecessary.
It pays off in some sort of way.
It pays off really well. But yeah, Veruca Salt's demise.
Yeah.
The big geese, right?
Yeah.
Which is another thing of just like, oh my god, they're gigantic.
To make big golden chocolate eggs.
Right. And then that song is like also like all right.
I love that song.
I know people do. Yeah.
But I know what you're getting at. I think at face value, without the nostalgia behind it, you're not wrong. Fair enough,
Yeah, Veruca Salt's demise is great. It's like, turns out she's a bad egg.
Oh, I know. That's such a great punchline to it. But also, like, what's the name of the actress who plays Veruca Salt? Julie Dawn. Okay. Shout out to Julie Dawn because she fucking kills it as Veruca, especially in that song too. The way she's able to switch, like, right when she says like, "And I don't want to share them." Dun dun dun, and then she switches to like nice daughter, kissing up to her dad mode.
Her performance is also so big in every scene. Like every scene, she's so like she's dialing it up 100%.
Yeah, no,
and
I want one now.
Which is for a kid that for adults that's hard to do.
Yeah.
But for kids to have that energy in every scene, to be so bratty and annoying in a perfect pitch all the time, very impressive.
I do like that in this interpretation of the dad. I mean, this is the first movie interpretation. He seems like you almost kind of feel bad for him that he's like at so much the mercy of his daughter. He's always so stressed at her demands every scene.
He's a daddy's girl, yeah. And I like how the mother's just sewing. She's like, "You fucking idiot."
Yeah. What was that again?
I said, "You fucking yeah, idiot."
Okay, just making sure because they can hear it.
I won't repeat it. I'm not doing another take. That will stay.
We're here now. Yeah, we're keeping it. Also, I love the line that Willy Wonka says to her. It's when they're in the room with the wallpaper with the where they can lick the wallpaper and it has all the different tastes, which is a very strange scene.
You're talking about the snozberries scene, right?
Yeah, the snozberries. Right when she says like snozberries, who's heard of snozberries? And he just gently takes her face. We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
But like,
what the fuck is that?
Holds her.
Yeah, with her tongue still out.
It's a line from like a poem from the 1800s called Ode. And you know that line, you know the phrase that everyone says like, oh, like a bunch of movers and shakers in this town.
Yeah.
Apparently that phrase is from that poem too.
Okay.
But yeah, he literally holds her and he's like, we are the dreamers of dreams. And then just like walks off. He's like, okay.
Yeah, it's his way of telling her like, quick asking questions. Snozberries, they exist, you know?
Yeah. Like, we are capable of making anything be.
Yeah.
Imagine Jeff Bezos doing that.
I don't want to.
Imagine like you're no. Imagine you're in the Seattle Amazon factory. We are the makers of dreams. It's like, really? Get in the Bezovator. It's just like
the Bezovator.
It's just one fat Amazon drone. Again,
like
guys,
every child's nightmare. Does this Jeff Bezos holding your face and saying that close to you?
And his shiny bald head, his huge biceps. Again, I need to make it clear, guys. If you're not watching the YouTube channel, you need to watch it. Me doing this is gonna add so much to your experience.
This is how you're pitching the YouTube channel more.
Yeah, it's a horrible impression of Jeff Bezos, but I love it.
I was just gonna say, I love the line Willy Wonka says when he whispers to Veruca's dad. He's like, "A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest man."
Yeah. No, yeah. It's great. Just like, it's the thing that I think this movie's just trying to say is just like, loosen up, be a little free.
Yeah,
Like,
open your mind to things outside of your own box of what you see reality as.
The whole thing with also Wonka just being like, stop, police, murder.
Oh yeah, I know.
Every time a kid's in trouble, he's like, please don't. Like, oh, you want me to yell at your kid? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. You just like watch him fuck up. He'll learn quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing he says at the very end too, after when he reassures Charlie that everyone's going to be okay. When he's like, they'll be back to their horrible old selves. Whatever he says.
So Charlie's the last one standing. He won the Hunger Games. I mean, doesn't Grandpa Joe even say it's like, our little group is getting smaller and smaller?
Yeah.
But basically Wonka is like, oh, okay, sorry for not walking you out. The door's over there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so awkward.
I remember as a kid, that is such like a, I don't know what word to use for it, but it's such a disheartening scene.
Yeah.
When you watch it for the first time as a child, I do remember that feeling. I'm like, that's it? Like, you feel
It's very
it.
devastating. And then they go inside of his office and everything's cut in half.
What is that?
I have no fucking idea.
So I didn't even, again, I know I've had like fucking like, you know, existential takes. That's a scene that like I didn't look up and I still kind of don't know what it means. But I'm, like you said earlier, I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
And maybe the comment section will light up with explanations, but like, it's so strange. Everything's half, even his magnifying glass is
I
half.
know, the magnifying glass, and you see the little bust that holds his hat is cut in half too. The clock is cut in half.
But the fucking balls to not explain it.
Oh yeah, and no one even acknowledges it or notices it really.
I just don't, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm also not seeing enough kids movies because I'm not a kid, but like, I don't think movies made for kids are doing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You know, we're like putting things out there that are a little bit more thought-provoking and are a little bit more like strange and kind of cosmic in a way. But like, it's up to you. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. It's gonna not hinder the experience.
Yeah, it'll give something to you, and what you do with it is up to you, obviously.
100%. So Wonka is very frustrated, really busy. They go up to him and basically says in a long, like long-winded way by reading the contract is just like, you drank the soda bubbles, you floated, scratched the walls that we're gonna have to clean, so you get nothing.
Yeah, the fizzy lifting drinks.
What does he say? Good day, sir.
Yeah, you lose. And he's like bright red, fuming, angry.
I always remembered, like even as a kid, I always remembered the way he said etc., etc., etc.,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Yeah, so basically, he gives them the illusion. He basically wants to heavily piss them off to essentially aggravate them to want to give Slugworth the gobstopper.
And Grandpa-
which it works on Grandpa Joe.
Grandpa Joe's like, if Slugworth wants the gobstopper, he's gonna get it.
Yeah, which that's always the thing. I forget, like, obviously, Veruca crosses her fingers when he gives them all the gobstoppers and says, as long as you all solemnly swear not to give it out. And then I forgot the small detail as well that Mike TV and his mom were planning on it. Like, oh, do you think Slugworth would like this? You know? And so
everyone's willing to give it up.
everyone was, already conspiring against. Charlie was the only one that was loyal to the end. Even
But,
after he got yelled at.
Yeah, the important part of that is that he got yelled at, berated at, and like lost everything in his eyes. And it's like, yeah, but I'm still not gonna. I'm gonna do the right thing still, which is what makes Charlie who he is. Puts it in, and then he's just like, what does Willy Wonka say?
So shines a good deed in a weary world.
Again, I'm sorry. I apologize for giving these long-winded takes, but I feel like that is the character's arc, kind of, in a way, of just like Willy Wonka being like, okay, there is hope. Like there is someone that can still keep what I once had alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he sees that in Charlie. And
Yeah, then you see him immediately kind of break character for the first time. You know, you kind of see Wonka in his purest form in those last like 3 minutes of the
truly
movie.
way. It's what it's what Timothée Chalamet was in the whole movie.
Yeah, like,
Again,
God damn it!
I have to say, like the movie isn't as off tone as people think it is. I just think it's telling a different story at a different time. People can say how weird Wonka is, and he is, but you were right. That's
a lot
his
of it is
purest
an
form.
act. Yeah, exactly.
A lot of it's an act, and a lot of it is just him being a weathered man, in my opinion. That's how I read it. But takes him to the Wonkavator.
Yeah, which, okay, I'm just going to bring up another Chris logistical moment.
Go for it.
Where the fuck are they going?
They're going home.
Are they just going home? Is that what they said?
Yeah.
I thought that because he just pushed one button. He was like, there's one button I haven't pushed. Charlie, push it. Where is it taking them?
I think it's just going to take him home.
Okay, I thought they just shot in the air, and then he's like, by the way, the factory's yours.
Yeah.
Oh, where are we going, Mr. Wonka?
The factory's yours. Mr. Wonka. No, I always assume they go home and like if you want to watch post-credit scene, he tells his parents that like you got it, we're gonna move to the.
Did you say
factory.
post-credit scene?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're like the movie keeps going and it just follows Charlie
Yeah, Charlie Bucket will return.
having to learn how to run a business, how to keep a factory up to standards. And
Yeah, they
up to
fail
code.
immediately. Yeah. But
I'm not trying to ruin the movie, by the way. I've seen it so many times that I can't help but just notice these things now. Yeah, so
gives him the factory.
yeah, straight up gives him the factory. Says you know you can bring your whole family too, and then he's like, yo, don't forget what happened to the man who got everything you ever wanted.
Lived happily ever after.
He has to end the movie on a slightly weird like sentiment. You're like, oh, okay, cool.
All right. But it's still touching. Like, it can go both ways. One is you're like, what was that? And another way is like a kid watches that and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's a perfectly sweet ending. I always like, this is kind of random, but in Red Letter Media's Phantom Menace review, when he goes over the basic narrative beats, and he says at the end, like, and he wins, and usually gets the girl at the end as icing on the cake, and it shows a couple different iconic movies of the guy getting the girl.
Yeah.
Do you remember in one of the clips you can clearly see Willy Wonka and Charlie hugging? Like,
Guys, watch the Mr. Plinkett reviews.
yeah, if you haven't seen them, I mean, it's like YouTube history. You got to watch it.
There's some people I bet who don't know.
Yeah, so heavily recommend. Watch Red Letter Media's Mr. Plinkett Phantom Menace review. It's iconic. Anyway.
So we can wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you're listening, check out the YouTube channel for my awesome Jeff Bezos impression. Thank you to our patrons for supporting us again and again. Last but not least, stay nice, dudes.